Before there were trains, planes, and buses, Christian pilgrims came through the gate of this great city, the Porta Maggiore, to visit the shrines of Rome. The high point of their visit was the tomb of St. Peter. Many of them carried a pilgrim map. I have one in my hand, to the churches of Rome. And we see them there, coming to visit the saints. Let's follow them as they go on their journey. The first pilgrim site we will visit is the shrine of St. Lawrence the Deacon. It's right down the road from here. St. Lawrence the Deacon welcomes us to this, his church. He was a martyr who died in 258 in a persecution. He was so esteemed that Constantine the Emperor built a church in his honor over his grave, and he has been the source of great inspiration to pilgrims ever since. Old 13th century pictures at the church entrance tell the story of Lawrence, but they're hard to read today. So let me tell you about him as we go in. Lawrence was a deacon of the Roman Church during the middle of the 3rd century, when Rome began to experience wars and political instability. Gothic tribes were breaching the Roman lines along the Rhine River, and the Persians were invading in the east. The only thing to do was to expand the army, and that's what the Emperor Valerian did. There was fear everywhere. Those massive walls we saw earlier were built around the city then. Wars cost money, of course, and in Rome, the burden of war was especially heavy on the poor. Food shortages and plague only worsened their situation. That's when the Christian church stepped in to help. Christians were still relatively few in Rome. They weren't wealthy, but they gave generously to the poor, and the Roman people admired what they saw. Lawrence the Deacon was behind this extraordinary Christian effort. After all, Jesus said, "I was hungry, you gave me to eat. I was thirsty, you gave me to drink. I was sick, and you visited me." The Roman leaders became upset by the church's charitable efforts. They also wondered if the church's money couldn't be channeled toward their war effort. And so, in 257, an edict was published to imprison church leaders and confiscate church money. A second edict in 258 caused blood to flow. Pope Sixtus II and 4 deacons were seized in the catacombs of St. Callistus and executed on August the 6th. Lawrence the Deacon was seized and executed on August the 10th. That's his feast day today. We have descriptions of his martyrdom. The Roman prefect, anxious for the church's money, promised him freedom if he would transfer it over to him. So Lawrence asked for 3 days to get the church's treasures together. Then, going through the city, he gathered all the poor, the unfortunate, supported by the church, and brought them to the prefect's door. "Here are the church's treasures," he said. "The blind, the lame, the orphans, and the old." The prefect angrily ordered Lawrence burned alive in a gridiron. Those witnessing his execution said the saint went to death cheerfully, even joking with his executioners. "Turn me over, I'm done on this side." All of this gained a flood of converts for the Christian church. It wasn't just because of the bravery of its martyrs, but because of the church's social outreach to the poor. When the Emperor Constantine gave Christians religious freedom, a little over 50 years after Lawrence's death, he built a church over his grave because Lawrence was so honored by the Christians of his day. We honor him still. You can see the tomb of Lawrence under the altar of this church. The present church is really two churches. The older one, behind the altar, was built by Pope Pelagius II in the 6th century. To accommodate the growing number of pilgrims, Pope Honorius III built another church in the 12th century. The tomb of Lawrence is pretty much the same as it was. Pilgrims reach in through the iron grating to touch it and ask his blessing, and we'll do that too. Maybe he'll help us keep an eye out for the poor and appreciate them more. Wherever you go in Rome, you're going to find Lawrence. There are other churches honoring him. He's often pictured with Peter and Paul, the founders of the Roman Church. Michelangelo has him among the blessed at the Last Judgment. That's because he represents something important in the church. A large fresco of the saint stands at the entrance to the Vatican Museum's Chapel of Nicholas V, which contains priceless works of art. But Lawrence seems blind to the riches around him as he boldly proclaims the message inscribed beneath his feet. The poor are the treasures of the church.